welcome to another episode of Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. For this episode, I'm going to be talking about a movie from the 80s, and that movie, well, let's be honest, it's basically an American musical comedy film, which is basically from the world of Jim Henson and the Muppets. And this movie that I'm going to talk about from the world of Jim Henson and the Muppets would be the Muppets Take Manhattan. Now, the Muppets Take Manhattan is a 1984 American musical comedy film directed by Frank Oz and the third theatrical film featuring the Muppets. The film stars Muppet performers Jim Henson, Frank Oz, Dave Goelz, Steve Whitmire, Richard Hunt, and Jerry Nelson as the Muppet performers, including special appearances by Art Carney, James Coco, Dabney Coleman, Gregory Hines, Linda Lavin, Liza Minnelli, Joan Rivers, and Brooke Shields. This movie was filmed in New York City during the prior summer, and it was released theatrically in the United States on July 13th of 1984 by TriStar Pictures. This movie also includes a fantasy sequence in the film introducing the Muppet Babies. Now, of course, you're all probably wondering what the plot of this movie is, right? So, the plot for the Muppets Take Manhattan involves the Muppets attempt to get their college musical Manhattan Melodies produced on Broadway. And after being rejected by numerous producers, the group is forced to split up, leaving a heartbroken Kermit alone in New York. However, he later gets amnesia after a car accident and becomes an advertisement man, but his memory is eventually restored with the help of Miss Piggy, and the Muppets reunite to put on their show, which culminates in a real wedding for Kermit and Miss Piggy. Now that sounds like a good plot right there. Now, obviously enough, I feel like the movie speaks for itself because the Muppets really want to get their names out on Broadway, right? And let's be honest, the Muppets are really popular, and of course, obviously enough, Jim Henson and Frank Oz, they really brought the Muppets to life. Now, of course, as I mentioned, Muppets Take Manhattan is their third theatrical film featuring the Muppets, because prior to the third film, they have done two theatrical movies. The first one being the Muppet Movie, which came out in 1979, and then, of course, The Great Muppet Caper, which came out in 1981. And then, of course, 1984, Muppets Take Manhattan. So basically, this is their third outing. And of course, as I mentioned, Frank Oz is involved in the film, directing while also being the Muppet performer as well. He also contributed to the screenplay alongside Tom Patchett and Jay Tarsis. Plus, the film was produced by David Lazar, and cinematography was done by Robert Patner, with Evan Lotman editing the movie. Ralph Burns provided the music, and as I mentioned, distributed by TriStar Pictures, and of course, production companies Delphi 2 Productions and Henson Associates. The Muppets Take Manhattan was the first film to be directed solely by Frank Oz, who previously co-directed The Dark Crystal with Jim Henson. The film received mostly positive reviews from critics, with praise for its puppetry, humor, songs, and characters, but criticism for some of its writing. And the film was a box office success, grossing $25.5 million on a budget of $8 million. Now that sounds like a good box office to me, especially for a film that came out in 1984. Even the film's budget was $8 million. I mean, that's still expensive. I mean, around that time, that's still expensive. But looking at it today, that's a pretty cheap budget, to be quite honest. And it still made money. I mean, it made $25.5 million. So that's a box office success for the third Muppet movie. That's pretty good. Before I dive into the production of this movie, plus the breakdown as well. So if you are new to the Codo Cinema podcast. Welcome to Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. If you are listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more content. And if you are listening to this on Spotify and Podbean, don't forget to hit the follow button as well. Now, before I dive more into the movie, in case in case you are probably wondering, I am feeling a bit nasally. I do have a bit of a cold inside me, which I know around this time, since we are coming close to the end of fall, which means winter is upon us. So yeah, so basically, good time. This is basically the time of cold and flu season. So yeah, and I do apologize for that, but. But your man Codo Man's doing fine. I mean, he's just a little nasally, having a bit of a cold, but for the most part, I am doing okay. So, anyway, let's get to the production of this movie, shall we? The working title of The Muppets Take Manhattan was basically under the working title of Muppet Movie 3, which makes sense because this is the third theatrical Muppet movie. Jim Henson initially planned to film in late spring of 1983, having directed The Great Muppet Caper and The Dark Crystal back to back. Henson decided to serve as executive producer while David Lazar served as producer. Upon selecting fellow Muppet performer and the Dark Crystal co-director Frank Oz to handle directorial duties, Henson stated, and I quote, "I was looking at the year ahead and I thought my life was very busy and I thought maybe it was time to have Frank directing one of these." The first draft, titled The Muppets The Legend Continues, written by Muppet Caper screenwriters Jay Tarsis and Tom Patchett, was dismissed by Oz for being way too over-jokey. After being given Henson's encouragement to tinker with the script, Oz revised the screenplay in an effort to develop the oomph of the characters and their relationships. Once the script was completed and the sets were built, special consultant David Mish was brought in to write cameos for some guest star appearances. Now, originally, of course, in the final cut, in the final cut, I mentioned cameos. Now, of course, I mentioned the cameos. Now, of course, I mentioned the cameos or special appearances, which includes Art Carney, James Coco, Dabney Coleman, Gregory Hines, Linda Lavin, Liza Minnelli, Joan Rivers, and Brooke Shields. Right now, apparently, there was going to be a different list of cameos before we got the ones that were in the final cut. Right. Now, the guest stars contained Dustin Hoffman, Steve Martin, Michael Jackson, Lily Tomlin, Richard Pryor, and Laurence Olivier. Now, I'm pretty sure Steve Martin had already made a special appearance in, I believe it was the first Muppet movie, if I'm not mistaken, because the first Muppet movie came out in 1979, and I think he made an appearance in that. Yeah, he did. He actually he was actually a waiter as he was actually a waiter in the first Muppet movie. So I don't know what role he was going to have in the Muppet Takes Manhattan movie. I'm not very sure. I'm just surprised that Michael Jackson's on the list too. Like, who would Michael Jackson? What would Michael Jackson's role? What would Michael Jackson's role would have been like if he was in that Muppet movie? Now, of course, Lily Tomlin and Richard Pryor. Now, of course, Lily Tomlin, Lily Tomlin. From my memory's perspective, like she was a host on Saturday Night Live, and also, funny enough, and also to bring this up, Jim Henson also had a run on SNL as well. To anybody's knowledge, now of course, going off topic. To anybody's knowledge, Jim Henson and the crew of Saturday Night Live, they had a sketch. They were trying to do a segment involving involving Muppets that he had created called Land of the Gorge, which is I guess you could say, an edgy adult Muppet segment taking place in space, right? And his appearance his appearances his appearances helped define the show's early groundbreaking style. So around this time, now of course around this time, when the Muppet Manhattan movie came out in 1984, it was basically SNL was basically on its ninth season around that time. It was around SNL was running for like 9 years around that time Muppet Manhattan came out, but of course, Jim Henson only had one run. But of course, Jim Henson only appeared on the first season of SNL, and apparently, he and the writers did not get along on making this segment because they were clashing over the vision for this segment, which also includes Michael O'Donoghue, who was one of the writers for SNL. In fact, the Saturday Night Live movie, there was actually a Saturday Night Live movie that came out, which also echoes on the whole Jim Henson's run on Saturday Night Live as well. So yeah, so there's something right there. So yeah, Jim Henson had a run on Saturday Night Live for only one season, but of course, it didn't go well. But anyway, I thought I'd bring this up. But also, Lily Tomlin also had that. There was also, but there was also a mention of Lily Tomlin too, because in one of the clips that I saw from Land of the Gorge, there was I think one of the characters from Land of the Gorge had a picture of Lily Tomlin, and I'm pretty sure she was, and I think that, and I believe that was when she was and I believe that was when she was a host on Saturday Night Live as well. So there was like a picture and a name drop of Lily Tomlin during the Land of the Gorge segment on SNL. So yeah. But anyway, going back to the movie, yeah, Dustin Hoffman, Steve Martin, Michael Jackson, Louis Tomlin, Richard Pryor, and Laurence Olivier were among the few cameos who were originally going to appear in this movie, but apparently, according to Mish, Hoffman was going to play a Broadway producer and planned to do an imitation of film producer Robert Evans, to which Robert Evans was involved in producing he was involved in the first Godfather movie as a film producer, which he later did in the 1997 film Wag the Dog. However, at the last minute, Hoffman decided that the role could be offensive to Evans and dropped out, following which all the other big names left as well. And because of the dropped cameos, Mish and Frank Oz ended up rewriting most of the dialogue, and this also explains why we got these other cameos in the final cut. Now it would be interesting what the original now it would have been interesting what the original cameo lineup would have looked like, but of course with Dustin Hoffman dropping out, things are gonna change, right? So yeah. But other than that, that's pretty much it for the production. But what about the now of course, as we go into the breakdown, y'all probably wondering, did I like this movie? Well, as someone who has seen the Muppets, I do. Now I have seen this movie, plus I have seen the first one as well. I haven't seen the second Muppet movie yet, but I will come around to it. But but I have seen this one. The Muppet Take Manhattan movie. I have seen this one. Now, of course, I have seen the Muppet Christmas Carol movie, to which that one's from Walt Disney, and that one was a good one too. Plus, they have also made a few appearances on Sesame Street, to which me and my brother Mike, we have already covered the Sesame Street Follow That Bird movie, to which Kermit the Frog also makes a cameo in that one too. Like, some of the Muppet characters make cameo appearances on Sesame Street. Jim Henson was also involved in making Sesame Street as well. But other than that, how about we get to the breakdown of this movie, shall we? The movie opens up with the Muppets graduating from college. Yes, the Muppets actually went to college, funny enough. And the Muppets perform a musical revue called Manhattan Melodies, and the show is a major crowd pleaser, and several people suggest that Kermit take the show to Broadway. Kermit is at first unsure, but the other Muppets insist on this as well, and they head off to New York City. basically, trying to, just to get their foot in the door, just to get on Broadway, right? And bring the show on to Broadway as well. I mean, that's a pretty cool idea. But of course, once they got to New York City, they get into a lot of problems, especially when it comes to impressing big name producers, right? Now, before I move forward with the film, Jim Henson plays Kermit the Frog, Rolf the Dog, Dr. Teeth, Swedish Chef, Waldorf, just to name a few. And then, of course, you also had Frank Oz, who played Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Animal, Sam Eagle, also to name a few as well. Jerry Nelson also played Camilla the Chicken, and then, of course, Floyd Pepper as well. Richard Hunt, who played Scooter, Janice, and Statler. So Jim Henson played Waldorf, and Richard Hunt played Statler. So there we go. Yeah, we got the theater guys, Statler and Waldorf, Richard Hunt and Jim Henson. All right, there we go. And then Dave Goelz played Gonzo the Great, and of course, he also played a rat named Chester the Rat. Speaking of rats, Steve Whitmire plays Rizzle the Rat, and then of course and then that's pretty much it. And then that's pretty much it in terms of like who played the main Muppets, right? I'm just listing out who played the main Muppets. But anyway, let's move forward. The gang goes from place to place, but none of the big Broadway producers seem interested. Now, of course, these are basically big name producers, right? They're basically interesting in, like something big, right? But apparently, what the Muppets have does not appeal to them for some reason, and it's a real shame too, because these guys just graduated from college, and they're trying to make it big on the Broadway, right? And this is really sad too, because there is a montage where where the Muppets walk around Manhattan just to find just to sell the show, right? But they get rejected on and on and on. And of course, their money dries up too, which is a real shame too, because they because unfortunately none of the producers were interested in their show. But anyway, the group stops into a small restaurant run by Pete and his daughter Jenny. It is here that the other Muppets secretly reveal to each other, minus Kermit, that maybe they are holding him up from being able to make Manhattan melodies. And of course, they lie to Kermit, explaining that they have gotten job offers in other parts of the country. But of course, later on in the movie, they do get job offers. This was just made up to, basically just to lie to Kermit. But of course, they do end up getting jobs. So anyway, the group parts ways, and Kermit is left alone in Manhattan, unsure what to do. He goes to the top of the Empire State Building, and looking down, regains his resolve, shouting out that he is going to succeed and get his friends back and get Manhattan melodies made. Now, of course, I'm going to go off topic for a second. One of the producers was basically interested in getting the Muppets show, and it turns out he was a con artist named Martin Price, who is actually played by Dabney Coleman. To anybody who remembers who Dabney Coleman was, he played the boss in the 9 to 5 movie. Basically, the boss being a quote sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot. Right? That type of boss. Yeah, that was the boss that Dabney Coleman played in the 9 to 5 movie, and now he plays a con artist in the Muppet Takes Manhattan movie. To which his name was revealed to be Murray Plotsky, and the Muppets. Well, basically, Animal, who was being voiced by Frank Oz. He stops the con artist, right? It's funny how Animal stops the con artist. That was funny. Oh man. But anyway, let's move forward. But also, just to mention this too, at that restaurant, but I'm pretty sure it's a coffee shop. The It's called Pete's Diner, and Pete's being played by Louise Zorick. And then, of course, you got Juliana Donald, who plays Jenny, who is the daughter of Pete and a waitress and an aspiring fashion designer. So basically, Jenny and Pete are basically the two main human characters throughout the movie, helping the Muppets, but mostly Kermit too. Although Pete's basically, your typical boss working in the kitchen, while Rizzo the Rat works there too, right? So Kermit ends up partnering up with Jenny and working at Pete's restaurant, and this moment is pretty funny too, because Kermit is trying to get a job part time. That way he can have time to, while make money, but also trying to put the show together. And I do find it funny how this moment goes into a bit of a kitchen catastrophe for a bit, where Kermit is trying to ask for a job, but also Rizzo the Rat doesn't want to get doesn't want to fall into Pete's abuse. And I'm not kidding. Pete calls Rizzo a lazy rat, and Rizzo takes offense on that, and he's begging Rizzo to not leave because there was a breakfast rush. And Rizzo was like, "Oh, okay, okay, don't beg, but I need some help." So Rizzo calls his rat buddies, which I'm pretty sure this is basically a precursor for Ratatouille, by the way. And he brings in some of his rat buddies, and of course all of his rat buddies, including Kermit, they were basically like, "All right, yeah, yeah. Well, how about the job? Well, let's talk about the job." Yeah, and Pete was like, "Come on, man. Rats one job. Frog one job. What's next? Penguins?" And out of nowhere, the penguins show up. And the penguins are like, "Do you have any jobs available?" And everybody in the kitchen was like, "No." And the penguins were like, "Well, excuse us for living." And all the penguins squawked and laughed as they leave. "Well, excuse us for living. Get it? Living, because everybody's trying to make a living, right? You need money to make a living, right? It's New York City. Typical, am I right?" But of course, Pete gives everyone the job. Pete gives the rats the job, and of course, he he gives Kermit the job of being a busboy, or basically, washing dishes, right? So that was Kermit's job, washing dishes. So anyway, Kermit and Jenny are talking, and of course, they're trying to come. Basically, Kermit has an idea of trying to, try several different techniques, and Jenny makes these costumes for Kermit, where he basically, disguises himself as a popular producer. Like one costume he wears, he's all in pink, and he's basically got like somewhat of a Oh man, he's a perm or something. I don't know. He basically walks into a producer's office pretending to be an old friend. And by the way, one of the producers he runs into is John Landis. John Landis, who directed the Blues Brothers and of course Animal House, plus the Twilight Zone segment Time Out. John Landis basically throws Kermit's script away for Manhattan Melodies. And then another attempt comes in where Kermit, he comes in wearing this black fur coat. He has a mustache and wears a hat, and basically, impersonates a producer, right? But of course he goes inside this restaurant. He goes inside this high profile restaurant, which is basically, a restaurant full of all these famous celebrities. And of course, he removes a picture which looks to be, Liza Minnelli. And he removes Liza Minnelli's picture and replaces it with his own picture, right? As being the, top producer, right? And of course, the rats try to spread a whispering campaign in a high profile restaurant, saying that, hey, this guy over here, he's a big time producer. He's trying to sell the show. All the high profile celebrities are starting to get the attention, but apparently the rats reveal themselves. And of course, and then of course it's also revealed that Liza Minnelli notices that her picture is taken down, right? And of course, Kermit and the rats get thrown out of the restaurant. So these attempts led to failure, but Jenny insists that Kermit shouldn't give up. While in Central Park, both are surprised to come across Miss Piggy, whom Kermit had assumed had left with everyone else. Now, of course, Miss Piggy stayed in New York City. She got a job at a department store where she works with, where of course we get a cameo from Joan Rivers, who is a perfume saleswoman who works with Miss Piggy for a bit. But apparently, Miss Piggy, and I'm pretty sure Joan Rivers herself in that scene, got fired, right? Because it turns out Miss Piggy was spying on Kermit the Frog hanging out with Jenny, right? And then, of course, Mr. Wrightson, who's being played by Graham Brown, he is the manager of the perfume store where Miss Piggy briefly works, and of course, he fires Miss Piggy. By the way, so then, of course, Miss Piggy spies on the two, thinking that Kermit has cheated on her, which is not the case at all. So it becomes apparent that Piggy has been following Kermit and thinks that he has developed a relationship with Jenny, which is not true because it's revealed that Kermit and Jenny are just friends, even though Miss Piggy was like, why? Even though Miss Piggy thought that Kermit was cheating, which is not true. It's not really true. Even Kermit is like, "Why are you spying on me? Why are you spying on me?" Yeah, Miss Piggy, why are you spying on Kermit and Jenny? It's not like they're gonna date or anything. Kermit's still committed to Miss Piggy. Come on, Kermit's not that stupid. He's not gonna cheat on. He's not gonna cheat. Come on, man. But it does lead into a crazy sequence where some thief stole Miss Piggy's purse, and Miss Piggy, full of rage, chases the guy on rollerblades, who she takes from another cameo. I'm pretty sure it's Gregory Hines. Yeah, there we go. She takes a pair of roller skates from Gregory Hines and she chases the guy throughout Central Park. And of course, she's able to get her purse back from the guy. And then, of course, Miss Piggy meets up with Kermit, and Kermit and Miss Piggy get into an argument about Jenny. Even Gregory Hines was there, gets dragged under the bus for it, and of course, talking, and then of course, it was a quick argument, but of course, everything calmed down after that. After Kermit explains that, hey, I'm not dating Jenny. We're just good friends, okay? Why are you spying on me, huh? You should not be spying on your good friend, huh? I mean, that's a good point. Why is she spying on Kermit? He brought up a good point. But anyway, Kermit and Miss Piggy, get a nice little ride on a carriage, on a horse carriage, and then and basically, as they go out for a ride, they're both talking about what if life would have been like if we actually first met as a baby, right? And this actually leads into a fantasy of all the Muppet characters as babies, right? Basically, Mrs. Piggy as a baby, Kermit the Frog as a baby, even the Great Gonzo as a baby, including Fozzie Bear as well, and all the other characters as well. By the way, there was also a Muppet Babies show after this movie came out. So anyway, Kermit actually gets letters from all the other Muppets. So he gets one from Scooter, who manages a Cleveland, Ohio movie theater. One from Fozzie Bear, where he joined other bears for hibernation in Maine but cannot sleep. Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, which is basically the band alongside with Animal, having a gig in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, performing in a retirement home. Plus, I'm pretty sure this is basically an Oktoberfest as well. And then, of course, Gonzo and Camilla are trying to make a successful water skiing act in Michigan, while Rolf is working at a dog kennel in Delaware. To which, funny enough, James Coco, who has a cameo in this movie, dropped off his dog at the dog shelter that Rolf works at. And his name is Actually, his character's name is Mr. Skeffington, who's a man who leaves his dog at the kennel where Rolf works, right? So anyway, moving forward, Kermit gives Miss Piggy a job at Pete's diner or coffee shop soon after, and of course, looking through mail from the other Muppets. Kermit's surprised to find a letter from the office of Bernard Crawford, a big Broadway producer. Kermit rushes off only to find that the letter was sent by Bernard's son, Ronnie. Now, and Bernard is willing to give his son the chance to produce a picture, and Ronnie loves Manhattan melodies and wants to produce it. So, also to mention too, we have Lonnie Price, who plays Ronnie Crawford, and Art Carney plays his father in that movie, Bernard Crawford. So anyway, moving forward, Kermit eagerly calls up. So Kermit calls up Piggy and Jenny and tells them the news, but then gets so excited that he walks into the middle of the street and gets hit by a car, developing amnesia. After being in the hospital, Kermit's memory still hasn't recovered, but the hospital sends him on his way, wandering into an ad agency. A trio of ad executives, who happens to be frogs, take Kermit in when he helps them with a soap advertising tagline. Meanwhile, the rest of the Muppets have returned to New York, but the group is now faced with trying to find Kermit. Kermit, Kermit, Kermit. But of course, Kermit hangs out at a diner with the ad agency trio, which I'm pretty sure is basically a quad. Is basically a quad right now. But anyway, Kermit hangs out at the same diner with with the ad executives, and this was basically going on for 2 weeks, right? Even though they found Kermit at the diner, he does not remember them, so they are forced to bring him into the theater. And at the theater, where Manhattan Melodies is set to show, Miss Piggy tries to one time to get Kermit to remember, but he just makes hating comments about love between a frog and a pig. She hits him with a punch, and Kermit finally reunites with his friends. And of course, the show goes on for Manhattan Melodies. And of course, there are also other cast members too. Kermit the Frog brings in the ad executives into the show, and of course, Fozzie Bear brings him his other bear buddies from the cave, and then of course, Gonzo brings in the chickens as well. And of course, the Sesame Street gang also have cameos in this movie at the wedding. Like, we see Big Bird, Bert, Ernie, Count the Count, Cookie Monster, Oscar the Grouch, and of course Grover is also there too, and of course a few other Sesame Street characters as well. We also get a Blink and You'll Miss It cameo for Elmo as well, and this is when Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog are having their wedding, right? And of course, the show became a smash hit, culminating in what is intended to be a staged wedding between Kermit and Piggy's characters, until Miss Piggy swaps out Gonzo with an ordained minister. And yeah, Miss Piggy pulled a fast one right there. and the minister is being played by Dr. Cyril Jenkins, and he was the one who is basically performing Kermit and Miss Piggy's wedding, right? And and of course, both Miss Piggy and Kermit tied the knot. They're basically a wedded couple now. Hooray! Congratulations to Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog. And that's where the movie ends. So there you have it, folks. That is basically my breakdown on the Muppets Take Manhattan movie, right? So anyway, that's my breakdown on that. Now, before I close out this episode, I just want to give in a little. I just want to dive into some trivia for this episode, right? So there's definitely a little bit. So there's some trivia to this movie, and I've already mentioned some of it already, but bear with me because there's a little bit of there's a bit of trivia to this movie as well. So Jim Henson has a cameo in this movie, and he's actually the horse and carriage driver. basically, giving Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog a ride. And also the man, and of course, Brooke Shields has a cameo as well. Like, Brooke Shields has a cameo at Pete's Diner, right? And one of the rats stares at her, basically, just doing this, doing the thing. Basically, having no idea having no idea what's going on, right? But anyway, moving forward, Elliot Good, who, funny enough, was in the first Muppet movie. He's basically a cop that Kermit bumps into at Pete's Diner. Then, of course, I mentioned Lizzie Minnelli, to which she arrives at that restaurant that Kermit was at. Basically, Kermit was the one who stole Liza Minnelli's picture. And then, of course, this is also the first appearance of the Muppet Babies, which actually came out right after this movie. And then let's see. The kennel at which Rolf is working at has several dogs in labeled cages. Two of the cages said Jim and Frank, which is basically an homage to Jim Henson and Frank Oz. And then, of course, the soundtrack to this movie is the only theatrical Muppet movie soundtrack to have never been available on CD. However, three songs from the film, Together Again, which was also played at the end of the movie, I'm Gonna Always Love You, and He'll Make Me Happy, were released on the Muppets Music Collection, Music Mayhem, and more. So then, moving forward, also to mention, this is the last Muppet movie to have Kermit the Frog be played by Jim Henson before Steve Whitmire took over the role theatrically since The Muppet Christmas Carol, which came out in 1992 in the wake of Jim Henson's death in 1990. And Rizzo the Rat, he appeared throughout the final season of The Muppet Show in 1976, and along with Scooter as the Happiness Hotel bellhops in The Great Muppet Caper in 1981. But this is his first major role with the Muppets, and his first appearance with his more wise guy personality. There were definitely some pretty funny moments throughout this movie too, yeah. So there was a moment from Mr. Skeffington where he talks about his dog Snookums, and he says Snookums prefers the rubber Wall Street Journal to the rubber Washington Post. And Rolf, the dog, he was like, "Don't we all?" Let's just play it as either a chew toy or a newspaper, if you know what I'm saying, right? So let's just play it at that. Doggy toys, right? And then, of course, I mentioned the whole diner sequence with Pete, Kermit, and the rats. And Pete's like, "It was no good. Rats one job. Frog one job. What's next? Penguins?" Group of penguins peek through the door. "Do you have any jobs available?" And everybody in the room was like, "No." And the penguins were like, "Well, excuse us for a living." This is funny right there. And then, of course, Rizzle the Rat trying to find out what type of food is that from Pete, which is basically grits. Rizzle the Rat's like, "What's this supposed to be?" "Is grits. Grits. How many grits?" And then Rizzle was like, "How should I know how many? Count them yourself." I completely forgot that Swedish chef also was in this movie. He's like, "Oh, you're the pumping corn, huh? 3D, the corn is pumping in your face. Huh? Pumping corn in 3D, huh?" Oh man. Oh man, that's just good. Also, here's that Brooke Shields quote. So basically, this is from Masterson Rat, and Brooke Shields talks to the rat. "Is something wrong?" Masterson Rat was like, "Do you believe in interspecies dating?" And Brooke Shields was like, "Well, I've dated some rats before, if that's what you mean." I don't know what's up with that, but that line was pretty funny. And then, of course, Kermit the Frog bumps into that policeman that Elliot Good played, and the police officer was like, "Hey, watch it!" And Kermit's like, "Oh, sorry, I gotta get a contract so I can go out and kill him." And the policeman is like, "What? You're getting a contract to kill someone?" Nah. That's actually pretty mistaken because he thought Kermit was going to kill someone when in reality he's basically getting the contract for his play, right? And of course, it's not a Muppet movie without. And of course, it's not the Muppets without Statler and Waldorf. They're basically the theater guys, Statler and Waldorf, and this is referring to their Broadway show. Well, Waldorf, they finally made it to Broadway. Yes, and I already bought tickets. Are they good seats? Sure are. They're on the next train out of town. Statler and Waldorf, they're basically the original trolls, if you know what I'm saying, right? There's also another funny moment when Miss Piggy doesn't want to go out jogging, chasing after Jenny and Kermit. She was like, "Oh dear Lord, not jogging." Sorry, Miss Piggy, what other choice do you have? She forced into getting, skates from that one guy, Gregory Hines, right? But yeah, that's pretty much it for the trivia and basically some of the quotes here. But overall, I enjoyed this movie. The Muppets Take Manhattan movie is actually a really good Muppet movie. I mean, it's the third installment, but the third installment of this movie is pretty good. Like it's a really good movie. It's a really fun movie. The last Muppet movie that at least that I remember was from 2014 and it was basically Muppets Most Wanted. So we haven't had another theatrical Muppet movie yet. I mean, I don't know. Maybe maybe somewhere in the future we might get another Muppet movie. I mean, who knows? But of course, with Muppets Take Manhattan, it's a pretty good movie. And I'll say this for the original Muppets, it's a pretty solid trilogy. I mean, I don't know if that was the attention for Jim Henson because after Muppets Take Manhattan, they did more Muppet movies, but this was after Jim Henson died. Like we had Muppet Christmas Carol, Muppet Treasure Island, both of them from Walt Disney, and then you got Muppets from Space, which was actually distributed by Columbia TriStar Pictures, the 2011 Muppets movie from Disney, and the Muppets Most Wanted movie as well. So yeah, that was pretty much it in terms of theatrical Muppet movies outside of the three original Muppet movies. But anyway, I enjoyed this movie. The Muppets Take Manhattan. The casting is good. I like the cameos throughout this movie. And I mean, the Muppet performers are also pretty good too. I mean, Jim Henson and Frank Oz, they did very good with their stuff. Even the direction for Frank Oz was pretty good too. Frank Oz did a real good job directing the third Muppet movie. I mean, heck, he played Yoda in Star Wars, right? And he did the Muppets before Star Wars, right? On top of that too, he went on to direct other movies too. He actually directed another movie that I actually come to think of it, it just popped into my mind right now. The Indian in the Cupboard. Like he actually directed that movie, believe it or not. And then of course he also did Little Shop of Horrors as well with Rick Moranis. And then of course he did the Score movie with Marlon Brando. Now that's just to name a few. But Muppets Take Manhattan, that's a good movie that he directed. And of course The Dark Crystal. I mean, he did The Dark Crystal alongside with Jim Henson. I mean, the music is good. I do love the songs throughout this movie. Like, most notably, Together Again, which is basically I want to say that's the main song from this movie, right? Together Again. Da 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 da, da together again. And then we'll see. You also got other songs, Saying Goodbye, You Can't Take No for an Answer, of course, something cooking, which is basically, all the rats cooking in the kitchen. And then, of course, I'm gonna always love you. And then, and I'm pretty sure there's a few other songs too, which was also played in the finale as well. But other than that, that's pretty good right there. Even the writing was pretty clever too. Now, some people criticize the writing, but for the most part, I didn't find a problem with the writing at all. Like, I didn't really find a problem with the writing at all, so I don't know what was up with the criticism of the writings. But I guess you could say this was a different time period, so I guess some of the jokes didn't really land for some people, but I don't know. Like, I was okay with the writing. Like, it didn't bother me, but I was okay with the writing. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the writing? I would love to hear your thoughts on the writing for Muppets Take Manhattan, if you know what I'm saying, right? But but the humor itself was pretty good too. But other than that, characters are still good too. I mean, hey, can't go wrong with the Muppet characters. Kermit the Frog, Miss Piggy, Gonzo, Rizzo, Animal. Fozzie Bear, all the other characters, right? But Kermit the Frog really carried this movie, to be quite honest, right? He really carried this movie. And also, this movie also has a pretty good message too. Like the message for Muppets Take Manhattan is about the struggle of young dreamers in big city, emphasizing perseverance, finding your own way, and the importance of friendship and love. And that's a good message. I actually like that message because, come to think of it, throughout this movie, the Muppets were basically struggling to put their foot in the door to get on the Broadway, but they were able to find a way. They were able to find a way to do that. Kermit was able to find a way because apparently one of the producers was interested in the show, right? Which was basically so there was basically a way, right? And then of course the importance of friendship and love. That was basically an important thing that happened in this movie because especially with Miss Piggy and Kermit, their friendship and love was basically a big thing throughout this was basically a thing throughout this movie. Even Kermit's friendship with Jenny too. Like the friendship between Jenny and Kermit was pretty good too. And of course, basically Kermit and Jenny were working together to bring the show to life too, right? Once the Muppets were able to get their foot in the door, their show was a success, right? And it was all thanks to Kermit with the help from Jenny, Miss Piggy, and of course Pete as well. And that's a good message because even for young dreamers who are struggling, right? There's a lot of people who are struggling to dream big dreams, right? And it's tough, but what's also important too is basically finding your own way, not giving up, and of course getting help along the way with the importance of friendship and love. That's a good message for this movie too. Something that people should take to heart as well. Other than that, that's pretty much it. So anyway, that's my take on this movie. So anyway, there you have it, folks. That is my take on the Muppets Take Manhattan movie. So anyway, to anybody who's listening, to anybody who's listening, what did you guys think of the Muppets Take Manhattan movie? Did you like this movie? Did you not like this movie? Did you think this movie was okay? I would love to hear your thoughts. And if I'm missing out on anything from this movie, please comment below in the comments section. But anyway, that will be a wrap for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in to Codo Cinema. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Remember to watch movies and stay positive.